Hi everyone. So today we are going to finish with the 6 ways to illusion of space techniques worksheet, and we are going to go over size, value, and focus and linear perspective today. If you have your worksheet with you, it will be on the back. You can print out your second one, or you can draw on the back of your sheet 3 more boxes and label them just like this. Just a quick review, what we learned yesterday. Overlap is when you have an object covering another object, so that you can see the ones in the front would be a foreground and the one in the back would be in the background. Shading is when you use values to show light and shadow to turn something from a 2-dimensional shape to a 3-dimensional form by shading it. You have 3 ways to shade an object. You can use hatching, cross-hatching, and stippling. And here is the example. And then we learned about placement. Placement is when you arrange the objects onto the paper, either the bottom, the middle, or the top of the paper. And as the height goes up, if you go up the paper, it will appear to be farther away. If you go to the bottom of the paper, it will appear to be in the foreground, closer to us. Okay, and then we are going to get started with size today. Size is when size actually is very similar to placement here, but except you see here all the trees the same size. Well, when it comes to size, the objects that are closer to you will be a larger size than the objects that are farther away from you in the background. So foreground will be larger, middle ground's a little smaller, and then the background will be much smaller, kind of like large, medium, and small fries. So there's 3 different sizes here. So I'm going to, I wrote what I need. I copied the definition, but I want you to write what's important to you, either keywords or a sentence, example, or whatever that would help you remember what the size technique is. So I'm going to quickly demonstrate, do a drawing to demonstrate my understanding of the size technique. So here is my sheet of paper, and I don't have to draw this, but since I want to do the same technique as on the other side, I want to show you. I'm going to use the tree again, and here is the large, the ones in the foreground, FG, foreground. And then when it goes up the page, like placement, it gets a little smaller. In the middle ground, MD, middle ground. And then it gets toward the background, and the size of the tree would be much smaller. And here's the background. And you got the change of size, large, medium, small, to demonstrate space. So, because when you look kind of far ahead, when you're outside, things that are far away are very small, and then they lose. You can't see their details very well, which leads us to the next technique. So the next technique is called value and focus. So if you have a camera and you take a picture, you have to focus so you can see the details better, right? Here's value and focus. Objects closer to you in the foreground will appear in better focus with more details than object in the background. Objects far away will be blurry. So here we have a picture, and you can see that the rocks and the trees that are kind of in the foreground here, you see the lines are darker. You can see the details in the branches, but then look at what's far away here, where the horizon line, the farthest thing from us, I would assume those are mountains. And why? Because I can't see very well. They seem to be the farthest thing away, so they are very blurry. So that's what value and focus is. It's just the technique of changing the way you draw or the shading just to show that what's in the front would have more details than what's all the way in the background. So here is another artwork here that demonstrate value and focus. Once again, things that appear to be in the foreground will have better details, seem to be more focused than what appears to be in the background, which is blurry. And that's why I brought up the camera, because most camera has the ability to focus so that it can focus on what's close to them so that they can capture the details. So I am going to show you a drawing. I'm going to go ahead and, after I write down what's important to me, either the definition or the keywords or the sentence that would help me understand value and focus, I am going to draw a picture to demonstrate my understanding. I'll use this one again just so you can see. So the trees in the front. This time I'm going to add some branches. And even since I'm adding details, things in the front, I'll add textures. I'll even add leaves and flowers. So this is the foreground. And then the ones in the back, well, guess what? You can't really see it very well because it's far away. And this shows my I'm demonstrating what I understand. And here's the one in the background. Not only that it changes the size, it got smaller because it's far away, its details change as well. All right. So the reason why I am teaching you these 6 techniques is because once you've learned how to use any of these techniques, your artworks will become even more interesting, even better to look at. The viewers will look at your work and will understand it more, because if you're trying to show something that is in the foreground, well, you can use overlap, you can use placement, you can use size, you can use value and focus to show that's the object in the foreground, because truly it's on a piece of paper, it's just a drawing. So how are you going to be able to make it look realistic? Well, if you understand the techniques to show space, then you're on your way to making an artwork seems more realistic to the viewers. And then the last technique would be linear perspective. Linear perspective is a drawing technique, drawing method that shows how things appear to get smaller as they get further away. And they converge, that means meet towards a single point called the vanishing point on the horizon line. So that's a lot of keywords there. There's a lot of keywords. So I wrote down the definition and I underlined what are really important to me. Appear to get smaller as they get further away. Converging, that's meet toward a single point on the horizon line. Vanishing, it just means to disappear. Well, the reason why it's a vanishing point, because it's so far away that to a certain point you just can't see it anymore because it's so far away, and that's why it's called a vanishing point. So to draw an artwork that demonstrate linear perspective, especially in this case a 1-point perspective, because you only have one point, one vanishing point, you would need a ruler if you plan on drawing the streets and things like that. But I'll show you just a quick sketch on what linear perspective looks like. But here are 4 different artworks created by students just like you, and they demonstrated linear perspective in their work. 1 point, specifically a 1-point perspective because of the 1 point in the far back. in the middle of the paper. And we will have more time to focus on linear perspective artworks later on. This is going to be a project later on, so I will have a separate day, digital learning day, that will show you how to create a drawing with 1-point perspective. So let's get started on this one. First, we have to draw our horizon line. A horizon line is the line that kind of separates our view, the paper, from the ground and then the sky. So whatever that's standing on the ground, like buildings or trees, they are standing on the horizon line. But in this case, I'm going to draw my horizon line right here. And I know that this is going to be the sky. From here up is the sky. Or if there's mountains I want to draw, it will be on this line. And from here down, or anything that's on the ground. After that, I am going to place my vanishing point on the horizon line. Then I'm going to draw 2 diagonal lines and I'm going to draw things that will kind of appear to get smaller as they get further away. So I will use the tree once again as an example. I'm going to draw the tree at the front, will be largest or tallest, and then it gets a little smaller, and then it gets smaller. So now I am using size as well as placement because it gets closer to that point. You notice? And then if this is the street, I would draw the street lines just like in the picture. But if I want to draw rivers or train track, I can do that too. Here's how I draw a train track. Train tracks. Same, the train tracks gets a little closer to each other and smaller and shorter as they approach the vanishing point. These are just rocks. So when you draw anything on the side, the objects that seem to appear to get smaller as they approach this vanishing point, you need to make sure that you are drawing them straight up because they are still standing on the ground. Pay attention. Don't draw them tilted to the side, inward or outward. So over here on the horizon line, I can draw several things. I can do mountains. I can do city. But any of these things will be in the background. All right. So this is what a linear perspective, especially in this case, is called a 1-point perspective drawing. And you just learned 6 ways to illustrate space in art: overlap, shading, placement, size, value and focus, and linear perspective.